everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is a really exciting session. As somebody who's attempted a thriller as well, my debut novel, which had just come out a couple of months ago, this was particularly exciting for me to, to interview really luminary authors from France and Poland, respectively. So we'll get right into it. Okay, so why are we drawn to darkness, and what keeps us riveted to crime writing, turning the page late into the night? What does it take to create a subtle sense of suspense? And what is the craft involved in keeping a reader on tenterhooks and on edge, slowly revealing a mystery or unraveling the makings of a crime? So we are here with Philippe from France and Zygmunt from Poland, whose crime thrillers have riveted audiences in their native countries and all over the world. I'd like to begin first by introducing Philippe's book, Grey Souls. So at a very surface level, at a very superficial level, Grey Souls is a detective story, and it's about a crime that's committed in 1917, right? In the middle of World War I. But the crime is solved as a cold case 20 years later. And the story is about a young 10-year-old girl who is one of the 3 daughters of an innkeeper, who goes missing, and her body, she's found strangled and dumped in a canal. And basically, suspicion falls on 2 deserters who are subsequently, they are interrogated and they are sentenced and they are arrested immediately. And then 20 years later, the narrator, he's an unnamed narrator, he's a local policeman, he picks up the case, and he starts investigating the case again. But the death of the child is not the only crime committed in the town during those weeks. And as the investigation unfolds, very slowly, there are, in a very subtle way, the sort of dark, hidden emotions and secrets of the townspeople are exposed, and it exposes the nature of grief and loss. Bastard saints, I've never met one or the other. Nothing's black or white, and it's the same with souls. So the grey souls of the title refers to the sort of the inner moral ambiguities and emotional detachment of the characters. And the characters themselves struggle with, guilt and survival, and there's this sense of like existential emptiness within the characters, right? So I'd like to first ask Philippe to read from Grey Souls before we get into a question. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I tried to do myself, but I apologize because I have a cold and my thinking are a little bit scrambled this afternoon. So I want to read a few lines of the beginning of this novel. Grey Souls. It's very difficult to find the beginning. So much time has gone by that words will never bring back, and the faces too, the smiles, the wounds. Even so, I must try. I have to cut open the belly of the mystery and stick my hands deep inside, even if none of that will change a thing. If somebody were to ask me how on earth I know all the things I'm going to recount, I'd answer that I just do. I know them because for 20 years they've been as familiar to me as the fall of night and the dawn of the day. Because in fact, I've spent my life trying to piece them together, to put them into place. Though they can speak and I can listen. That used to be my job, more or less. I'll be calling forth a lot of shadows, but one will be out front. It belongs to a certain Pierre-Ange Destinat. He was the prosecutor in V, the little town, for more than 30 years, and plies trade like a clockwork, never faltering, never breaking down. Actually, you could say he was an artist, but he didn't even need a museum to show his art. In 1917, at the time of the case, as people here call it, always with a side is meant, he was over 60 and had retired only the previous year. Though he hardly spoke, he always made a great impression. He was a tall, impassive man who resembled an indifferent bird, far off and majestic, with pale eyes that never seemed to move and lips whose thinness he didn't bother to disguise with a mustache. His forehead was high and his hair a most distinguished gray. V is about 20 kilometers from our town. 20 kilometers in 1917 was very far indeed, especially in winter, especially in a war that showed no interest in ending. The war caused great commotion on the roads, and they became jammed with iron cars and trucks, flooded with stinking fumes and thousands of thunderclaps. Even though the front was fairly near, from our town it seemed an invisible monster, another country.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much, Philippe. So I wanted to ask you, Philippe, about the title of the book, right? Which is, very emblematic of the sort of moral ambiguity that the characters have. So the book, the case, like I mentioned earlier, it's based in the period of the World War I. And at that time, there was anyway a sense of moral ambiguity in the air. People were not sure what is right, what is wrong. The lines had blurred between these sort of certainties. So I wanted to ask you, why did you want to focus on this theme of moral ambiguity, and why did you center it for this novel, really?
So, in this novel, as like in another novels I wrote, I tried to make an exploration of our human nature. And especially, I wanted in this one to discover how it was possible to live just very close to the front of the war. You listen to the sound of bombs. You know that each day there is 1,000 young soldiers killed. But at the same time, your life continues. And in this human dimension, the life continues. At sometimes it's happened crimes too. It's strange because you have a big crime in the battlefield, but at the same time some people want to kill another people. It was not enough to have a big war just there. And why it's possible to kill a young girl like Belle de Jour, and for which reasons, okay? And so I wanted to make a parallel between two crimes, a big one and a private one. In the same times, but maybe after we talk about that, it was very comfortable for me to use the structure of crime fiction to propose a real investigation, not about crime scene, not about the real murderer, but about our human nature, and this dimension of our moral ambiguity. Because we are a very strange creature, it's very easy to do good things, but sometimes we prefer to jump into the evil. Why? You know? And why especially during these moments, you know? This apocalypse, okay? And so it was just at the beginning my intention, and I wanted to compose a very complex character with this character of the prosecutor, because the prosecutor is the figure of the law, but at the same time it's a man too, you know? Not perfect.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll get back to some of the themes that you discussed in terms of like the moral ambiguity and exploring crime fiction to explore much bigger themes. We'll get back to that a little later. So right now I'd like to bring in Zygmunt's book. So Zygmunt, in your own words, you discuss Rage as follows, his novel Rage. Rage is a dark detective story set in Poland. The protagonist is a prosecutor. It touches on the theme of violence against women and has a rather unique structure. The main mystery is not who killed, but who will be killed by the main character and why. So Rage is a psychological thriller, and it follows a prosecutor named Theodore Shatsky, and he investigates a brutal murder in Warsaw. And although the crime appears to be like a passionate outburst, as the prosecutor delves deeper into the crime, he discovers a dark and disturbing history of personal and societal tensions. So Zygmunt, sort of taking on from the last question about moral ambiguity, which we explored in Philippe's work, the ending of this novel, Rage, that you wrote, it sort of leaves the reader with unresolved tensions, right? It's not a clean, clear-cut, conclusive kind of ending. So I wanted to ask you about the ending. Why did you write that ending, one that doesn't have these sort of neat conclusions? And in its own way, it sort of emphasizes a state of ambiguity, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? Yes, can you read a little bit from Rage, please?
Hello. Before I answer, good afternoon, and thank you very much for coming here, and namaste. In Poland we say Szczęść Boże, which means may God bring you luck and happiness. Because I mean, we have the same word in Polish describes both luck and happiness. So language has its little tricks. Sorry for taking a picture of you earlier. I always do it for my wife wherever I go, because she's like, oh, why do you have to move all the time? I mean, I have audience there. No, you don't. Please stay home. Well, I have. So thank you for coming here. And please excuse me my heavy Polish accent. I mean, it's really impossible to get rid of. Believe me, I tried. I'm going to read you just a few words. First, let me say just a few sentences in Polish so you can get a sense of the language. Dzień dobry, bardzo dziękuję, że Państwo tutaj jesteście. Przeczytam Państwu kawałek z książki. Nothing offensive, believe me, is being recorded. And there are Polish diplomats here, so I have to be careful. So my character is also a prosecutor, which I found, very exceptional until I met Philippe just a few minutes ago. And in this scene, my prosecutor visits high school to give, a heartwarming speech about justice and law. And that's what he says. The statistics are against you, said Shatsky coldly, a strong voice, well rehearsed at hundreds of trials and closing statements, boomed over the heads of the assembled company too loud. Each year, more than 1 million crimes are committed in Poland. 500,000 people are charged with offenses, which means that in the course of your life, some of you are sure to commit an illegal act. Most probably you'll steal something or get in a car accident. Maybe you'll cheat someone or beat them up. One of you might murder someone. Of course, right now, you can't possibly accept such a dreadful idea, but most murderers never imagine they're going to kill. Just like normal people, they wake up, brush their teeth, and make breakfast. And then something happens. An unfortunate tangle of events, circumstances, and emotions. And that night, they go to bed as murderers. It could happen to one of you, too. That's what my prosecutor says to high school students. Wasn't that cheerful and heartwarming as everyone had expected? And to your question. Well, you're right that the ending of the book is about ambiguity, and I didn't want to make a choice for my character, because I left him in a very dark spot. I mean, it's not a spoiler because we know from the beginning that the main character commits murder. Yeah? Then we go back, and the plot asks not who killed, but who's going to be killed and why by the main character. Yeah, that's the mystery behind this plot. And when we find out why he did it, it's well, I didn't want to decide for my readers what really happens. So I left it quite open. And the truth is that in Polish version, the original version, it's even more open than in my translations. Because, I mean, you have to learn. And my readers in Poland, I mean, were really angry. I mean, they didn't want to accept it. I mean, they loved this character. They were really into him. And suddenly, leaving them without an answer, I mean, they found it really shocking. So, I mean, you have to learn. So when I was working on the translations with my translators, beautiful, I mean, really helpful people, I mean, you know, maybe we can change it a little. It's good to have novels translated because translators are great readers. They notice everything. So we decided to change it a little, but still, it's for you to decide what the character does. And I must admit that I mean my novels, my literature, I believe it's less about the people and more about society, because I believe that society defines us in a very strong way. But that we often do not acknowledge, that we often do not notice, but being a part of a group is very strong. The group can make decision for us. Tradition can make decision for us. We are supposed to bow to tradition, to follow it. And, you know, being from traditionally the conservative country, I mean, I really wanted to take a look at it.
Okay. So how was the translation received, the alternative ending?
Well, they didn't know the difference, right? So it's not like my readers, you know, compare different versions. Oh, come on, can't be. You cheated on us. No, I mean, I usually don't talk about it in Poland because I don't want my readers to get angry again. You know, that I decided to make it better for foreign audiences.
Okay, thanks. So I thought it would be interesting now to ask you both common questions, because I think there are certain, you know, while your books are very different, of course, there are still certain like commonalities and common themes, and which I faced myself as I was writing my book. Which is also a thriller, as I said. So, you know, both your novels are obviously and overtly crime fiction. They're both thrillers, right? But although they are set up as thrillers, they transcend the conventions of a thriller. And you know, they explore much wider themes, much wider concerns, right? So within the framework of a thriller, where you know conventional readers might expect a sort of a straightforward narrative, right? A right versus wrong kind of narrative. Both your books surpass these expectations and cover some very deep and dense themes and subjects. So for instance, Philippe, in your case, you know, in Grey Souls, you cover war and the concerns of grief and culpability and guilt, and also the collective trauma of an entire village, an entire community, right? And Zygmunt, in Rage, as you just mentioned about, you know, social structures, etc., you blend a societal critique within the genre of crime fiction, right? And you cover justice, guilt, morality, etc. And of course, the themes of violence against women, which comes out very strongly. So my question to both of you is, do you think the crime genre allows for a more nuanced and honest conversation about societal issues, as well as a tool for engaging readers in deeper philosophical questions? So Philippe, if you can go first, please.
So, I think I use crime fiction like a trap for the readers, you know, because all of us, we are fascinated by the crime in society, everywhere, every time. And it's strange because if a crime happens in your private life, it's a nightmare, you know? It's an awful event. It's a tragedy. But at the same time, we are very obsessed by to watch the crime happens in movies, in newspaper, in novels, etc., etc. It's strange, you know. And so, as a writer, I use this fascination because I know that with it I can catch my reader and invite him to follow me. Not really in a real investigation about the crime, but an investigation in the psychology of the narrator in this book, or an investigation about our society, our anxiety, our fears, our preoccupations of political dimension and question, etc., etc. You know, in this novel, my narrator, so first, we don't know exactly during maybe 50 pages who writes the story, who is the narrator. And after 50 pages, we discover that it is the policeman. But he writes his story 20 years after the events. 20 years after the crime. And why is so obsessed by this crime, this cold case? Because why it's a cold case? Not really. Because he is a criminal too. We discover step by step. He is a murderer too. You know, and is a character full of guilty. And there is not a story, a banal story and a simple story, it's a confession. Because he wanted that maybe the reader forgive him, you know. But at the same time, it's an investigation about the society during and after the war. How it's possible to be survivors after a big war like this one. How it's possible to rebuild ourselves, to rebuild a society, a community, a relationship clear and peaceful between human beings, and how it's possible we rebuild ourselves with a trauma, with lost people, because it's at the same time it's a widower, you know. And so, you know, I use the structure of the crime fiction like a trap, like a hook, too. And for me, the reader is like a fish. And I try to invite the readers to follow me until the end. And at the end, I'm not sure the reader has the solution of the first crime, you know? It's the reason why during a few years, some readers wrote me, asked me, so tell me, please, who is exactly the murderer?
Yeah, sometimes readers want clean answers, right? They want to fit things into clean boxes. Zygmunt?
Yes, I mean, it would be a waste of resources and talent to write just a crime story. Yeah? I mean, crimes are pretty straightforward and boring. I mean, someone killed someone, you think it's character A, maybe B, oh, it's character C, yeah, end of story. When what's behind it, this is the most interesting part, and we can choose different themes. And for me, as I said before, it's society. I believe it's a really good vehicle to discuss dark sides of societies and nations right now in literature. And we all do have dark sides. I mean, officially, we want to be patriots. We want to love our nations, our countries, groups that define us. We want to show this, you know, dry, cleaned version. Nations of heroes, great warriors, great scientists, nations of equality, openness, you know, whoa, let's dance together. Well, there's always a dark side. And me, being a Polish writer, I want my novels to be this wicked mirror put before my compatriots and say, look, that's what we also are. We are not only Nobel Prize winners. No, we are this. And this novel, Rage, it covers the topic of domestic abuse and, not really domestic violence, but violence against women. Because violence against women doesn't really come from, you know, like personal anger. It comes from the very structure of society. Yeah? It's woven into the structure of traditional societies. And it happens in Poland, being, you know, traditional, religious, conservative, Catholic country. And tradition is a very strong word because we want to be part of something bigger. We don't want to be alone. We want our ancestors to be proud of us. Yeah, grandma, I'm doing good work here. But tradition is also, it can be a very bad word. Can be like this password to open the darkest closet. No, this is tradition. So you're going to be abused because this is our tradition. You cannot ask for help because this is our tradition. You cannot tell anyone because this is happening in a family. And family is sacred. It's just like, you know, the OG family, like Jesus and his mother. It should be closed behind, you know, the curtain of silence, and we shouldn't interfere. This is the most popular sentence that can be heard from the conservatives in Poland. We should not interfere. Well, we should, because something's wrong. And when something is wrong, and you have a voice, just like us, yeah, we have a voice, someone listens to us. So it's a great responsibility. It means that someone listens to us. We cannot write just a crime story about dead body lying, you know, somewhere in the woods. Oh, so funny. No, It's a huge responsibility. If someone listens to us, we have to fight for what we believe. We have to fight for a change. We have to show the dark side of our societies or of our own souls and say, hey, maybe we should, work on it. Maybe we can save the tradition of our ancestors, but on the other hand, do no harm.
Yeah, yes, I'm totally agree with Zygmunt. I like very much the metaphor of mirror, and because with a lot of novel, we try to show different things that people refuse to look, to see, and novel is a mirror, and very often I consider the writer like a surgeon at the same time, You cut the social body and you open the social body on all the intimate body, and you see deep inside, and after you show the result to the audience. Sometimes it's not comfortable to discover that, but I think it's our mission,
I mean, and this is great what you're saying, because from some angle, societies are like people who don't want to diagnose themselves. So maybe I'm healthy. Well, I have some pain. But something's wrong. But no, it's better not to go and see a doctor, because we can. Doctors, they always find out something. So it's better not to go. So in a way, artists can be, like you say, doctors, surgeons of societies, like opening it and saying, well, man, you're not healthy at all. But there is a cure. It's called thinking.
Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. So one more question I had was, again, it's a common question for both of you. So along with the crime, along with the thriller in both your books and the exploration of these wider themes that we just talked about, both your books also delve deeply into the psychology of the key prosecutor, right? They're very deep explorations of the psychology of that prosecutor. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of actually crafting the book, was it difficult to sort of, because there's a tension you have to build up in terms of the crime, in terms of the thriller, but then you also want to delve deeply into the psychological state of the prosecutor. So was it easy to strike that tension between both these things?
I don't have the conscience of the writing process during my writing process. I don't know why exactly what I write like that. Why I write about that. I have very often the impression that during the writing process, I like wild earth, totally free in an amazing and large landscape. And I follow my instinct. I follow my desire to go where I want to go, but without idea, without philosophy, without intention. I like this dimension of freedom during the writing process. And when I finished the writing of a novel, suddenly, when I read my texts, I realize the dimension, the question, the intention I made into the text. But it's difficult for me to answer your question, because so there is a character, a prosecutor. There is I put him in a crime fiction, and I try to explain his psychology, but I'm not the good people to know very well how it's possible to manage these different lines of writing, you know.
Right. I guess maybe that's more a critic's task because as a
Yeah,
writer.
readers, critics, and
Yeah.
I prefer readers than critics.
Okay. Yeah. Zygmunt?
Well, you know, like death, sickness, crime, we tend to believe that it happens to others. Yeah? L'enfer, c'est les autres. So it's like hell is others. So when creating this, when going into the subject of domestic abuse, well, I was the victim of the abuse. So, but I discovered how little I knew about it. Yeah, even though it should be my responsibility to know. Yeah, but men tend to think that I do nothing wrong and it's fine. Yeah, this is where my responsibility ends. And discovering that it can happen everywhere, no matter if you're rich or if you're poor, if you're well educated or dumb as hell. I mean, it comes from a certain belief that another human being that you can own another human being. Yeah, and this is something that I am personally afraid of. I mean, do I have inside me, like everyone, capacity to be bad, to be abusive, to harm someone? Of course, I believe deep in my heart that I don't. But on the other hand, I know how it works. I mean, all the people that made the worst things in human history, they really believed deep in their hearts and in their minds that they were doing it for the greater good. It's like the abusive father saying, I mean, it hurts me more than you. And they really believe it. I mean, it's not a lie. If we connect them to lie detector, it would say, well, yeah, that's right. It hurts him more than this little kid. That's true. So I wanted to ask this question, and I was thinking, I mean, how to... and then I came up with the idea that I should make my main character to become violent, to show that it can happen to everyone, and that we have to be careful all the time, thinking about what we do, what we think, what we believe. I mean, I have 2 kids, and I repeat over and over. You have to ask questions. You have to doubt. I mean, you have to rebel. I mean, the moment when you think that you know all the answers because someone gave them to you, you're totally wrong, and you lost.
Okay. Thanks so much. Yeah. So we have about 5 more minutes for questions. Do we have any audience questions? Yeah, can you pass the mic, please? Yeah, on the first row.
Firstly, thank you so much for a most engaging and wonderful session. I've been a great admirer of the genre, but the kind of thought and philosophy, that goes into it, I've got a better understanding of that just by listening to the both of you. I'm really curious, because I know both of you, you cut across generations. I know for one, I have talked to a lot of people that your following goes across generations. So the younger people love you, the middle-aged love you, people who are older also, they enjoy reading what you write. I know that for sure. But what I want to know from the both of you is that who are the people or the authors that have inspired you? Who were the ones that you were growing up and you were reading them and you were getting inspired that, okay, I will want to become a writer one day? Is there any specific author that you would like to mention or any other person that inspired you, to take this path? Thank you.
So this time I go first, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's French. I know it's great culture and everything, and basically they invented literature. But I would like to mention two great writers. One is Astrid Lindgren. It's a Swedish writer for children, and which is amazing. I believe that this is the greatest children literature ever written. She should have gotten a Nobel Prize, but well, she was a woman. Yeah, Astrid Lindgren. And the second writer, well, also Swedish, but all right. Is the guy that made me think about writing crime fiction is Henning Mankell. It's also a Swedish writer, contemporary, dead, unfortunately, so maybe not so contemporary. He showed me that crime fiction can be such a great book on society, and I thought, oh wow, I want to do this. I want to do this in Poland, because back then I wanted to write real literature, but my publisher approached me and told me that I would get, better advance for writing crime fiction. And that's how it went.
I agree with Zygmunt about Henning Mankell. I discovered books of Henning Mankell maybe, 20 years ago. And I read one novel of him. It was boring, But I have the desire to read another one. And I read another novel of Henning Mankell. It was still boring too, but maybe less. And step by step, novel after novel, you discover a real portrait of the Swedish society. And I like very much this writer because, the first times this novel seems nothing, but it's a real big work of masterpiece and a mirror, like you said a few minutes ago. But maybe my most favorite writer, very precious for me, between social writer and crime fiction writer, I wanted to propose two names. One of Italy, especially Sicilia. It's Leonardo Sciascia, okay? And another one in Switzerland. It's a writer from Swiss for German Swiss, Friedrich Dürrenmatt. And the both wrote very short novels, like a tale, dark tale. And do you have the impression to read a crime fiction? But in truth, it's not real crime fiction. It's a philosophical tale about human nature. And for me, it was a big discovery. And I made that these two writers gave me the permission to follow, their example.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Hello.
much.
Yeah. Hello. I have a,
Go ahead, please.
yeah. I have a question, a broader question on the genre of crime fiction, which is, you see a lot of people writing detective stories, crime, and you're seeing fewer and fewer people writing about humor, the P.G. Wodehouse kind of humor. Is that a reflection of how the society is changing, or is it a much more difficult genre to write? Humor is, you go to an airport, there'll be a big section on crime, very small section on humor. Is that a reflection of the society, or is it a reflection of the difficulty of really writing genuinely funny books that make people laugh?
I go first again. Basically, crime novels can be really funny. Like give you certain, dark humor, irony, can be sarcastic, and they often are. But basically, I agree with you. I think that there are two great rivers of fiction. It's comedy and drama, and comedy and tragedy. And we are way, too much into tragedy. And I can tell you why. Because comedy is difficult. It's really not easy. My wife's a theater director, and she teaches at the theater university, and students, they don't want to do comedy. Comedy is cruel. If you do something tragic, something sad, you never know. Maybe the audience is so silent because they are so deeply touched. Or maybe they're just bored to death. But with comedy, you know immediately whether it works or not. So it can be really cruel. And I believe that this is the most, the answer is, why is there not more comedy? Because it's bloody difficult. It's really difficult. It just means that we should, as writers, try harder.
Yeah, I totally agree with Zygmunt. It's more difficult to write, to shoot, to make a comedy. It's dangerous. It's a very fragile work, It's more easy to compose a tragic novel, a tragic movie, melodramatic. It's more because, I'm writer, I'm director too, and I explore this dimension in movies too, and I know very well, and I learn to my students that you say it's more easy to make cry people, to catch the audience with the drama. But if you want to compose a real comedy, it's very difficult because sometimes do you have a comic scene, very funny, etc. If you put your camera movie very close, or if you choose to put your camera movie 2 meters far, the effect will be totally different. And sometimes it's a flop, not funny, And step by step, when you direct a comedy, you have a lot of problems like this one, And, in the writing, it's over. Yeah.
It's over.